Hello, and thank you for joining me as I read some more of my book, Revelation. Okay. Stateroom. An hour has passed, and Jeanette is pacing the room. Christian is now wearing his new suit and shoes. He did his best to calm her. Everything is going to be all right, as he patted her on the shoulder. Thank you, Christian, but I don't think so. I have a very bad feeling that everything is just going to get worse, Jeanette replied with a grimace on her face. Sandra stopped just outside the cabin door, not wanting to upset Jeanette about how Frederick took the news. She won't let him kill her. Somehow, she will show Frederick that Jeanette is nothing like the vampires that killed his family. She wiped the tears from her face and straightened her dress and her hair. She took a deep breath and entered the room. With a big smile on her face, she said, "Frederick is the best man I know." "Sandra, I was worried. So everything is good? He understands?" Jeanette asked with skepticism. Christian smiled and hugged them both. "Why, yes, of course it is," she smiled. "He is going to do all that he can for us from his end," she lied. Blackwood Manor. It angered Anthony whenever Alexander said anything about Catalina. He wished that Alexander had never found out about Meco or his daughter. The vampire that told him is no longer living. She died a horrible death at Anthony's hands. One day he will make Alexander pay for everything he has done to put him through. Anthony truly loves his daughter. She is a Damphir, also known as a Lugat. A Lugat in Albanian folklore. Many years ago, Anthony went to Tel Aviv, Albania. He had heard about a new magician, the great Meco, so he went to the Crave Theater to watch him perform. But to his surprise, Meco was a she. Meco's Hassan. Meco Hassan is a beautiful vampire. She was an elder in the Dilan Coven. He fell in love with her almost instantly. She wore a skin-tight body stocking, sparkling red, that left very little to the imagination. It had the lowest neckline he had ever seen. It bared almost all of her voluptuous breast all the way to her belly button. It came to a point just above her crotch. Her long raven hair and brown eyes added to her beauty. Her skin was a light cream color and her pouty lips blood red. Anthony could not take his eyes off her. Because he is a warlock, vampires cannot use their powers of persuasion on him, so this made him even more intriguing. Meco was born into a middle-class family. She was a fraternal twin brother named Hagar. They were born vampires. Their mother is a vampire, but their father was human. She became an illusionist after her father disappeared. She felt that her coven had gotten rid of him. Her mother is a member of the High Council of the Dilan Coven. On one of her journeys to look for her father, she was given an ancient artifact. It gives her the ability to fly. The artifact absorbs radiation from the earth and converts it into energy that she can also use in powerful energy blasts. This gift was given to her by David Farina. She has not shared the fact that she has it with anyone for the fear of the leader of her coven would take it. She uses it in her shows. Anthony and the man who gave it to her are the only ones that know the truth about it. Anthony and Meco have been lovers for 60 years. They have never married because it is forbidden for vampires and witches or warlocks to wed. Their daughter, Catalina, is a secret. It is forbidden for any vampire to have a child with a witch or a warlock. Catalina is about to come of age, 14. She has jet black hair and black eyes. Her skin is translucent. She is a Lugat. She does not cast a shadow and has a dark birthmark on her lower back, like she used to have a tail. She's almost invulnerable to any form of human attack. Only wolves can kill her, that they know of. She can only feed on human blood. There are very few records of any kind on Lugats, so they rely on old books and scrolls for information. So really, no one knows anything about them. Anthony put down his glass of wine and stood up and walked toward the study door to leave. "Where are you going, Anthony?" Alexander asked. "Unlike you, I have to eat. I'm going to have Cynthia make me some dinner," he snidely replied. "I think that I will join you. I feel like eating a very rare steak," Alexander laughed. As they both walked down the long hallway toward the kitchen, Alexander patted Anthony on the shoulder and told him that he was sorry for being so hard on him. Anthony thinks to himself, "This idiot has no idea how I really feel about him." For a moment he enjoyed the thought of taking a pure silver knife and cutting off his hand, while watching the look on the total shock on Alexander's face when he finally realized how much he hated him. If Alexander knew about his plans, Anthony would be put to death. One day soon, Anthony plans on becoming a vampire. He will have Alexander change him, but first he needs Akashi. He was told by Osiris that there was a spell in the book that could let vampires walk in the sunlight unharmed. Once he's a vampire, he will have one of his many followers kill Alexander so he can take over his coven. Anthony's belief is that once he becomes a vampire, he will be more powerful than any other vampire or warlock before him. If he wasn't having to put up with Alexander's petty interests, he might have found Akashi already. They walked into the kitchen and find Cynthia cooking a wonderful frogmore stew. The smell of sausage, corn, potatoes, and shrimp fills the air. Anthony's stomach growls loudly. Cynthia looks up at him and says, "Maybe you should stop spending so much time with vampires. You keep forgetting that humans need food." Vampires can also eat human food. They just don't have to anymore. Being a country girl at heart has always been one of my favorite meals, she said as she held up a large spoon of stew for Anthony to taste. Cynthia is a very large, short, plump woman. She owns one of the best restaurants in London, the Mandarin. It is an old mill off Westminster Abbey. Anthony doesn't know how Alexander got Cynthia to come and cook at his mansion for him 5 days a week. Maybe he uses his vampire persuasion, because she doesn't need the money. He tasted the stew and told her it was wonderful. She made them both a bowl, and they sat down at the large table and began to eat. Cynthia brought them some homemade honey rolls and butter. She knew that Anthony loved honey butter. A servant poured them each a glass of white wine, and Alexander held up his glass and said, "This is a toast to Anthony, one of the best friends that I've ever had." Anthony chuckled in disbelief as he thought to himself, if he only knew. Teutonic. "We need to take Christian to the ship's tailor to fit him for a suit and more leisure wear. Jeanette, are you okay to take him while I go see Mr. Whitmore?" "Is he the reason that you've been topside so much lately?" Jeanette asked. "I didn't realize that I was away so much. I do apologize for that. Yes, Jeanette, I have been in the company of a gentleman." "Is he handsome?" "Yes, he is quite handsome, but I assure you that it's just his business I'm interested in," she answered. "What sort of business is he in?" Jeanette asked. "He's a wealthy landowner in America. We are going to buy some land from him," she explained. "I wish Mother and Father could have taken a ship across the ocean to see America. If anyone asks about Christian, you tell them he's our cousin, our mother's sister's boy," Sandra told them as she handed Jeanette a small coin purse. "I do not know what to say. You two are the nicest people I've ever met. I don't know how I will ever repay you," Christian said with a smile. "Your smile is all we need, Christian." They both said it at the same time, and they started laughing. Just then, suddenly, Sandra fell to her knees and grabbed her chest. She reached for Jeanette's hand and looked at her with fear in her eyes. "Oh my, what is wrong, Sandra?" Jeanette cried out. Sandra's body arched back to the floor as she started to shake violently, like she was having a seizure. Jeanette and Christian picked her up and put her on the bed, put 2 pillows under her head. They were both hovering over her when a bright burst of energy shot out of Sandra. It blew them back away from her. The air in the room became thick with a foggy mist. Sandra stopped shaking and lay there very quiet for a few moments. Jeanette ran into the bathroom to get a cold, wet towel. She put the wet towel on her sister's forehead. Sandra's eyes flew open. Her eyes were completely white. "Christian, look at Sandra's eyes," Jeanette said with dismay. He walked over to get a closer look when the bed started to shake. The room became completely immersed in the mist. They both backed away together in shock as they watched Sandra's body slowly lift off the bed. She was now floating in midair. Christian turned toward Janet and asked, "Does she do this often?" "I have never seen her do this before," Jeanette replied with shock. "Oh my, Jeanette, look at her. She's glowing," Christian said with amazement. "She is glowing," said a voice from behind them. They both turned quickly to see a young girl about 5 with long white hair standing in the corner of the room. She told them, "Do not be afraid. I am Diana. This is my human form." Jeanette and Christian turned and looked at each other. Jeanette shrugged her shoulders and asked, "What is your non-human form?" "In my true form, I am a dire wolf. I am a familiar," Diana answered. "What is a familiar?" Christian asked. "A familiar is an animal that obeys and assists a witch or a warlock with spells and other duties. I am a gift for Sandra," Diana replied. "A gift from who?" Jeanette inquired. "I was a gift to Sandra from the light. I was once Sarnia's, and when she died, I was returned to the light. Until such time I was needed. I am here to help Sandra and protect her," Diana announced. "Are you the reason she's in this trance?" Jeanette asked. "No, she is in transition," Diana answered. Diana was sent by Sarnia, or Sarnia was sent by the light to find Sandra. She was chosen, you see, by the light itself. Sarnia taught her all that she knew. The battle of the dark has been fought since time began, and we have lost many. We will never find a way into the darkness. Every time that we sinned in one of our own, they would be cut down or seized. Once captured, they were tortured by the dark and turned. Some of the light were losing hope, and the light started to fade. The dark is closing in on the contract. We cannot let the contract fall into the hands of the dark ones. "What is the contract?" Jeanette asked. "Sandra will explain to you in time," Diana told them. "When your sister took the task of finding the contract for the light, as soon as she made that choice, we could see into her soul. We could see that she was different from the others who have searched for the contract. We saw what happened to you. We feared you would turn dark right away. We feared that you would turn your sister to the dark, but your heart is pure. The love between you and Sandra is so strong. The light grew brighter that day. Never has there been a blood advantage like this before. Jeanette and Sandra are unique, a vampire with the heart of the light, and a sister, a witch who was chosen by the light. Never have we had this combination on our side. Two that are of the same blood, with the same passion that drives them to the light." Sandra began to wake up. "What happened?" Sandra asked as she awakened from her trance. She slowly sat up from the bed, holding her hands in her head in her hands. "I was so worried. I didn't know what was happening." Jeanette hurried over and hugged her sister. Sandra moved her legs to the side of the bed and sat up, and then she slowly stood. She straightened her dress and her hair, and she turned her head and smiled, the biggest smile that Jeanette had ever seen. "Diana, I thought I would never see you again." "You are going to see a lot more of me from now on, Sandra," Diana happily explained, "because I was gifted to you by the light." "You are my familiar? I can't believe it. I'm so honored," Sandra said as she hurried over and hugged Diana. "No, Sandra, it is I who is honored. You and your sister are the first of your kind. I am humbled to be in your presence," Diana exclaimed. Christian shook his head in disbelief, not understanding. "Sandra, under another member of the light, has perished, and you have absorbed their light, their knowledge. You are the one the energy has chosen. We have never seen this before. Usually the one who kills the one takes the prize. Some who have absorbed many different forms of the light have gone mad. No, then take it back. I will not let Sandra go mad because of this, Jeanette shouted. Diana tried to explain to Jeanette so that she would understand. Don't worry, Jeanette. It will take many lifetimes to really understand the massive amount of power and knowledge that comes with the light. Don't you see? This is why you were chosen to be bitten. What? Jeanette said in disbelief. As long as you have this curse, you will never age or die a natural death. You will live forever, Jeanette. Sandra must live as long as you are cursed. She must learn to use the knowledge and power of our fellow fallen champions of the light to someday wield the contract against the dark ones, Diana revealed. I understand, Diana. We will be together forever, and we will fight for the light, she replied as she nodded. Sandra remembered the books that she had picked up from the ship's library. They are about vampires, fables, and witch folklore. She told Jeanette and Christian they needed to read all of them before they reached port. The more you know, the faster you can learn to fight the dark ones. Sandra turned towards Diana. So how and what are we going to tell people about you, Diana? Diana smiled. Now that she has someone to help, Christian can sleep in the easy chair. She hoped that Sandra would not be up to, oh darn it, that's something else. I'm not supposed to read that yet, but sorry. But thank you for joining me as I read some more of my story, and I hope that you'll join me again next time.